Speaking of tracks, what are you making of HS2? The latest developments. Rishi Sunak is facing widespread anger today amid claims that the second stage of HS2, the high-speed rail line, could be axed to save some money. Ministers have already poured £2.3 billion into the Birmingham to Manchester phase 2 of this massively overpriced project. But the PM and Jeremy Hunt are reported to have told that the scrapping it now, even at this late stage, would save a further £34 billion. Money the Chancellor could use elsewhere in his budget, of course, which comes around in November. Earlier this year, ministers postponed the development of a central London terminus at Euston under the Phase 1 scheme, which connects London and Birmingham, instead terminating journeys in the suburbs to save some money. A budget of £55.7 billion for the whole project was set in 2015, but that target cost has ballooned to £71 billion. Can you keep up with the billions at the back? That's excluding the eastern leg, which was axed in 2021. And let's speak to somebody who's been a consistent campaigner against this project. William Miller, how are you doing, sir?
Hi, good afternoon.
Even just reading all that out loud gives us a taste, if you like, of not just the huge cost, but the absolute chaos around this entire idea of HS2.
Well, it's been extraordinary. I mean, really, I got involved with this because I'm a resident of Camden, and we were trying to stop HS2. I mean, we were trying to stop HS2 full stop, but we were also campaigning for HS2 not to come into Euston, but to stop at Old Oak Common. And we lost that battle. And, I mean, it's been clear from the moment Lord Adonis first proposed HS2 that this was a train crash waiting to happen. And you know, we tried very, very hard to prove that it was unviable, and here we are. That, you know, they've committed to it. Countless prime ministers have got behind it. They've drunk the Kool-Aid, and it's a disaster. And it's not coming into Euston for the foreseeable future. And now it's a train line that looks like it will carry a few people from Old Oak Common to Birmingham.
And what I find really amazing here, I mean, this is, forgive me for the kind of schoolboy nature of this question, William, but I mean, they're only building some railway lines and putting some trains on them. You would have thought, firstly, that was, by this stage, you know, from Beeching onwards, you know, we've learned how to do this thing. It's not like it's like, well, what is this idea of building a rail track? We know how to do it. How could something relatively, I mean, I appreciate it's big and therefore it's a massive engineering problem, and I also understand the problems it causes for the localities where there are, you know, houses destroyed and towns and all sorts of other effects, etc. But predominantly, building a railway shouldn't be that difficult.
Well, I mean, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, look at Crossrail. It took them much, much longer than they thought. It costs them more than they thought. And here we are with HS2. I think the problem with HS2 is there's been this obsession with speed. And to begin with, they thought that speed was what was going to sell it, and then it becomes capacity. And the problem with the speed thing is that for trains to hit the speeds that the politicians wanted, which it probably never will do, it's got to go in a pretty much straight line. And that means instead of following motorways or following the old line or expanding the old line, you've basically got to carve your way through the country on a straight line from London to Birmingham and then from Birmingham onwards. So, you know, acquiring land, which has turned out to be 1 million times more expensive than they thought it was, and then digging huge holes in the ground, if not tunnels through a huge swathes of the English countryside, is just unbelievably expensive. So, you know, it is the worst nightmare in terms of an engineering project. I mean, and we're good at it, but what we're not good at is the politics.
So why, I mean, is it just about people like yourself who understandably, for those who don't, you know, Euston is within the borough of Camden, of course, and therefore, you know, it's your area, it's your neck of the woods. So you have concerns about the disruption, I would imagine. Some people will have environmental concerns. Others will just be, I mean, hard enough to get through Camden on a good day, let alone, you know, when you start putting stuff like, you know, from Drury Lane onwards, that place can be a nightmare, like all parts of any big city. But is it that, or is it just the fundamental lack of sense in what this entire project achieves? Because when I read about the amounts of money, involved and the length of time, you'd like to think, you know, a philosopher's favoured alien coming down from another planet would think, well, I assume then that the journeys are going to be cut to about 3 minutes from 3 minutes from Manchester to London. That'd be great. No, it won't take 3 minutes. It'll be cut by 3 minutes. That's no good at all, is it? That's not progress.
Well, I mean, I think there are two things there, Ian. I mean, we are unbelievably distressed in Camden about the chaos that it's already brought to Camden. The number of people have been rooted out of their homes, and for what? I mean, Euston Station itself doesn't look like it's ever going to get developed. HS2 is going to be a bolt-on to the side. And that, of course, you know, the impact that's had on Camden, both environmentally and from a construction point of view, is a living nightmare. But overall, as a railway, it just seems to be utterly pointless. I mean, here we are with a railway that really it's going to end up going to practically nowhere in the end, when actually what we want is an enormous investment in improving the current structure of the railway system, particularly in the north. I mean, it's just an absolute crime that this railway now basically is going to serve, you know, a suburb of London to Birmingham, when actually the north of the country is just screaming out for improvements in their railway.
Yeah, indeed. This is going to rumble on, of course. It's not going away. William, thank you for speaking with us. We will speak again. Let's keep updated on this as well. William Miller, and I like that angle, that he's a resident and found himself becoming a campaigner. I hadn't even correlated. I use Euston Station from time to time. For those who are not familiar with London, you'll know Euston from the Monopoly board, if nothing else. It's quite a famous part of North London. It's a bit of a knackered station, to be honest, and it already was. I hadn't correlated, because when I've gone to Manchester, that's where you would go from. I hadn't correlated that all that work was to do with HS2, and that might sound naive. I just realised that it was an utter pain to now get to over the last couple of years. And then when you do get it, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. And that's all because of HS2. And this is not a railway line that is going to be so seismically game-changing that you would go, well, I can see that. You've got to take the pain because there's going to be plenty of gain. What sort of gain is that? My journey is going to be cut by a few minutes? No, that's not gain. Having said that, I understand that you need to change stuff, right? I mean, you need to update railway lines. You need to have different systems in place, more efficient systems in place, cleaner systems in place. I get that. It's quite convoluted. I mean, good luck if you want to start to have a little peek down this particular rabbit hole, but you'll be there for a long, long time. I don't find many supporters of it. I think that's possibly one of the headlines on all of this.